What's up, guys? Mikkel here with Mikkel's Markets, and today we're going to get into Palantir and what Palantir is really doing to differentiate themselves from every other company that I'm really currently watching in the stock market right now. Palantir is a data analytics firm who essentially uses their platform to train an AI neural net and monitor data in real time. A lot of people are saying recently data is the new oil. So how is Palantir going to use this to succeed going forward? Not only is Palantir like other tech companies in the sense that they have very, very good technology, but I think they're doing something kind of special right now to really differentiate themselves. One of Palantir's co-founders, Thiel, is a very good investor. And if we look at an article that came out about him recently, is he was actually able to turn $2,000 to $5 billion. I almost had to read billion twice in a Roth IRA. So, how did he do this? Well, it comes down to a sense of understanding disruptive technology. So, as one of the co-founders of Palantir, I think it's important that we keep an eye on the things that he's using Palantir's money to invest in now, because that might be an opportunity to invest in these things before they really get traction. Before we get into these companies specifically, I want to say that I would not even come close to building any of these positions larger than I've built Palantir. I think Palantir is kind of the main thing you build, and then you build some smaller positions in these other more speculative companies. At the same time, I think these companies are really cool, and I think they will benefit a lot just from taking advantage of Palantir's resources. And also, when you have Thiel putting money behind these, well, he probably has a better track record than me, so maybe it's not a bad idea to load up on these while he can. Anyways, let's get into some of these companies, because I think in the end, you can kind of link them all together to kind of get a better idea of what Palantir is trying to do. And I think it's really cool. So first we'll get into BlackSky. BlackSky, I own a very small position in. Essentially what they're doing is monitoring the skies through satellites to get real-time analytics from people on the ground. So essentially it's almost like having, it's a little dystopian to be honest with you, but they're essentially able to fly these satellites over anywhere in the entire world and monitor what's going on in real time. And I mean, this could be massive for any kind of major construction site, war zone, anything going on in the ground that people need to watch and keep an eye on. Unfortunately, as much as I don't really like it, I think this is kind of where we're going long term, and a lot of countries around the world are already implementing stuff exactly like this, even if in the US it's still a little bit held back. I think this is going to take off in the next couple of years, and I'm sure, and this company BlackSky already has a bunch of contracts with the military, as you could guess. Palantir is also working with them, so they seem kind of like a perfect fit to work together. You could use their real-time data analytics program to actually have AI monitor problematic things going on in real time. That way you don't even have to have people behind the screens watching what might be happening on the ground. I think this is really big because I think this leads to awesome margins in the end. When you have software companies that only have, say, a couple thousand employees, but you don't need that many because you have artificial intelligence making all the decisions for you. And when you have a program like Palantir on the back end, then you don't have to worry about a poor artificial intelligence software. You really need to worry about what that application is, and I think this is a real application right here from BlackSky. That's why I like so much that Palantir is actually the back end of these artificial intelligence companies. It gives a lot of validation to what they're going to be doing because you know they have a good infrastructure built under them. As long as they can launch these satellites and create a decent user interface, I think there's a real application here. I think the meat and potatoes is the artificial intelligence and the neural net, and the rest just comes after. So the first company I'm bringing to you is BlackSky. Once again, these are all very speculative, but I think it's a good idea to watch them, because if these drop down and keep getting slaughtered like the rest of the SPACs, there's going to be decent opportunity for these, especially going into year 2025. So we're going to go into the next one now, which is called Sarcos Robotics. And essentially, this is pretty crazy. They're essentially robotic suits and full robots themselves, literally like Iron Man, that essentially can perform tasks that humans probably wouldn't want to do. I was reading earlier that a lot of these robots could lift over 1,000 pounds, could jump more than 6 feet in the air, and could run over 35 miles an hour. So what does this mean? Well, like I said before, they also have Palantir's artificial intelligence software underpinning essentially the decision making behind these robots. That automatically takes this from a speculative startup to a startup with a real validation behind it because of the underlying intelligence that's supporting it. In the end, this is still probably a very niche thing, but it really just comes down to the execution and the hardware of the robots themselves. And let me tell you, hardware is always a lot easier than software. So in the end, this is another one of those things I think there's an extreme application for. Whether you're talking about Mars, other planets, or just maybe things like coal mining, just things in general humans don't want to do. I mean, this is an extremely good application for this artificial intelligence software. And as these things are deployed and data is brought back, it's just going to make these things smarter and smarter, and they're going to be able to make better and better decisions. And in the end, that just trains Palantir's neural network even more and makes an overall smarter AI platform. I really think in the next couple of years, Palantir might have one of the smartest AI platforms in the entire world by miles because of how they're using these smaller companies to breach their data input out into a whole bunch of different sectors in the world. So that's this one, and then we're going to get into one that I actually really like because it's not as far-fetched. This company is called WEJO, and what they're doing is they're essentially using, and Palantir has invested in these companies, and they're also using their software. So it's an awesome partnership because they're working together, and both in the same goal. And they're really not competing because this company is not going to create better AI than Palantir, and maybe Palantir doesn't want to go buying up these companies and looking like an early monopoly. So it's really creating an ecosystem. So this company is looking to connect cars in real time to help prevent accidents and other bad things happening on the road. I talked about this company earlier where I went over some other Palantir specs, but essentially by connecting a bunch of cars, they're able to have them interact together. Currently, one of the biggest problems with the driving is you have a bunch of independent brains doing their own thing. Therefore, when you come to a stop, the person behind you doesn't know you're stopping. If every single car was all on the same page and the next 500 cars knew that you were stopping, then every single car would stop at the same time and there wouldn't be any rear end. What this company is doing is looking to incorporate Palantir's artificial intelligence program into their own data analytics hardware and able to install in cars all over the world and therefore create a connective neural net of cars. And let me show you right here how exponential this can scale. This is 11.3 million vehicles that they are currently monitoring now. And they expect in the next couple years, I think this is next year, to be in over 50 million cars. A stat I heard recently is almost 90% of the data in the world right now was created in the last year. Data is scaling exponentially, and the more companies can take advantage of this data, the better off they'll be. For the next, I feel like that one's pretty easy to understand, so we'll jump to I'm going to skip fast radius right now because we went over that with another video, and I want to keep this a little short since probably no one made it to this point anyway. But anyway, let's go to Lilium. This is another Palantir stock. Palantir underpins their artificial intelligence, and essentially what they're going after is air mobility, air taxis. And I mean, for me, this is one of the most speculative ones you can get. It's essentially a prototype. There's no revenue. I need to watch this one go back first. I need to see what the stock does, but I mean, it's freaking cool. I would definitely build it into a small spec position. I wouldn't make it anything more than that. But I mean, what they're doing has a real application. When you think in 15 years from now, I think we're going to be taking air taxis and stuff like that, and there's going to be large disruption to the short commercial flights that are currently happening. I don't know if anyone really needs to take people aren't going to want to drive as much in the future, and stuff like this is going to help people navigate cities and also short distance rural commutes. I think especially it's going to be probably a more expensive, higher class thing, but I mean, you think about what they're doing here and with WEJO at the same time. I mean, that's Palantir's data analytics software in the ground and on the air. I mean, when you look at all the companies I just showed you, there's real connections. I mean, you're watching real-time monitoring from the sky with Black Sky. You're looking at a robotics industrial workforce with Sarcos. You're looking at connected cars with WEJO. You're looking at air mobility with Lilium. I mean, they're trying to connect and create what I think is the start of smart cities and trying to be the underpinning of a connected society. I think in the end, this really bodes best for Palantir, because I think this is Palantir's way of sneaking themselves into all these companies without becoming an obvious monopoly. I think this is really cool, and I think this is definitely something to monitor, because rather than doing stock buybacks and all kinds of other weird little tricks to make the stock go higher, they're putting their money where their mouth is and investing in companies that are using their platform and giving back to what the Palantir ecosystem is. This honestly makes me more bullish on Palantir and really makes me want to add more. And then I plan to add some of these other more speculative companies as well, because I think it's probably a good idea to maybe agree with Peter Thiel. He seems like an okay investor. Anyway, guys, I'll do more videos on this. I just wanted to pump one out quick. I was pretty bored. Please subscribe, blow up the channel. Let me know what you think of these videos. I'm trying to get a whole bunch of these going. And from now, I'll catch you in the next one. Mickle out.